In the meantime, actually, I have a question for the journalists. I mean, everything we're hearing is so complicated. It's difficult, it's not so difficult, it's got all this promise, it's dangerous. How do we as journalists kind of balance the good and the bad and explaining it to the public, not overhyping it, but at the same time not sort of underselling it?
Just the facts, ma'am.
We make a lot of mistakes doing it. You know, I think that's the problem. You know, you have to report the hell out of a story like this. You just can't. You know, there's not three experts. You know, you just have to work as hard as you can and try and put it in context. And don't just go to the scientists, but go to Kathy Hudson and go to other people working on this problem and try and fit that into a 450-line or 450-word story on Deadline.
With a sensational title.
Yeah, and make sure you get Frankenstein in the headline. This is key.
Or God.
God. No, that's the kicker. It's why we get paid. You know, it's because this. You know, if it was fun all the time, we wouldn't get paid. So that's not a great answer, but the answer is it's work. I think.
I guess I think two things. First, I think that in any investigation of a subject like this, a couple of things ought to be desirable. One, that when the journalist and the scientists talk, that the scientists not be given the priestly status of experts, but the scientists be challenged and goosed and poked at and asked, what do you know and how do you know it and so forth, and that exchange, if possible, if you're in a medium that allows it, that be clear to the audience. So the audience hears ordinary folks asking pointed questions to scientists. It's a very dangerous thing in this particular area to have people who know stuff and people who don't know stuff. So one's group is empowered and the other is somewhat in the supplicant role. I hope in the work that we do at Radiolab, we're very conscious of this. We try to model proactive, curious, skeptical behavior on the part of the generalist. So that means you're allowed to be stupid. You're allowed to have the scientist say, you don't know what you're talking about. So, well, help me here. You're allowed to go through all the little human things that happen between someone who doesn't know something but wants to know and someone who knows something but is having a hard trouble getting it out. That ability to get the conversation going, to model the conversation with stumbles and difficulties and prejudices exposed is, I think, extremely important. And the other part of it is the scientist has to be able to call the reporter and say, no, that's wrong, that's stupid, that's overmuch. They have to, if you're cartooning, they should be allowed to say that's a cartoon. And so the business on both sides, I think, should be transparent. Because ultimately, these are questions, if you think about it, these are questions which very quickly become very public questions. If it is true that somebody can snip CO2 or bring rain or take away goop, then that means that mayors in cities are going to have, as a legislative question, shall Tuesday be goop day or shall Wednesday be goop day? Shall we remove some clouds here or not? And if that's literally what's about to happen, I mean, it's hard enough for mayors to handle what day shall we remove the garbage, but if what day shall it rain, that's going to be a biggie. So people have to get used to being able to talk to each other, challenge each other, and act as if this kind of conversation is normal. That, I think, is the key.
Kathy,
if I can add real quick, you know, if it's not obvious to you, Robert is probably the best for asking these kind of questions. And several years ago, when he was interviewing me and learned that it was my genome, his response was, "Isn't that a little bit like Miss Piggy?" So he has a way of dropping the level of the conversation to an understandable basis.